Hello and welcome to State Matters. I'm your host, Matt Muratore. Once again, we'll be discussing our number one industry in Plymouth and the entire region, and the number three industry in the Commonwealth, tourism. Joining me for this discussion is Lea Filson, the new Executive Director of Tourism for the town of Plymouth and for the Plymouth County Convention Visitors Bureau. Lea, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
And welcome to Plymouth.
Thanks. I'm so thrilled to be here.
You know, we always start the show off with who our guests are, but you have such a fascinating background, so I'm going to give you extra time to go through who you are. So take us through that.
Well, first I'll tell you what mostly brings me to Plymouth.
Yeah.
For many, many years, I've been, like the last 15 or 20, I've been involved in the Mayflower Society because I'm a Mayflower descendant. And of course,
and where do you fit in that, the Mayflower descendant?
I was the Governor General of the Society this past term, but I've been on the National Board for 15 years, so I've been coming back and forth to Plymouth very regularly. The least amount is 4 times a year, usually much more. And love the town, love the history, of course, love everything about it, and also really feel a very strong responsibility to tell that story because of what it means to America. And so for that reason, I've always loved Plymouth, but I was coming here from New Orleans, and in New Orleans I worked in tourism, and I worked with the New Orleans Tourism Marketing Corporation with just a team that's almost as good as the team I'm working with now, but went through Katrina, worked with the industry.
Were you there before Katrina, or did you come after you were?
Well, actually, before Katrina, I was in television there.
And what did you do there?
And I was in television in New Orleans for many years. I was the host of PM Magazine, which you called Evening Magazine here. But I was the host in New Orleans for the entire run, and I've been a reporter. I've even done weather, Matt. I can do weather if you ever needed that.
We did a show on weather not too long ago, too. I should have had you on as a second guest.
I enjoyed doing weather.
Right?
Boy, I had to study hard to fill it. I was a fill-in for somebody for weather.
And where did you do reporting? Was that in New Orleans?
I did reporting as well, but I anchored and reported, but I mostly anchored there and was either the host of PM or a television anchor and reporter.
Yeah, wow.
But I enjoyed that.
How many years did you do that?
Gosh, I don't want to tell my age. Are you kidding? But a long time.
Did you?
I had a long career in broadcast, and then finally, after I had done the economic development story for Mardi Gras about the 10th time, it's like, you know, I'm really getting tired of this. So I aged out, which most people do, if you really want to know the truth. And you do age out. I mean, it's a very young business, and you have to. There are a lot of requirements you have to fulfill that you wouldn't normally have to, and other things. So I left that, and I started working freelance as a field producer. And I don't really talk about this much, but I was producing for shows on HGTV and several other things. And I was in the middle of a 13-week series for HGTV about a young couple who had taken a house that was just falling apart, picked it up, moved it across New Orleans into a bad neighborhood where 3 of the friends had decided to start bringing it back. But unfortunately, Katrina blew everything away, all the way down to the ground. And Katrina was really something. At the time that Katrina hit, I was also writing a print column there, and the place that I wrote for literally blew away. No business left, no building left, nothing. And so I lost our home too. My husband and I.
How did you make up? You lost your home too?
The people think that only poor sections of New Orleans were affected.
Everywhere.
80% of the city was underwater, and I lost pretty much everything. We had a family home that belonged to my husband in Ohio, so we went there. And within about 2 months, I got a call from a friend that was running the Tourism Marketing Corp that basically said, "You have to come back. You know, we've got all these reporters showing up to do stories that are war correspondents, and they're really making people upset because right now we've only got like travel people here helping them. And because I had a really deep background in news and in hospitality, having also worked for a major hotel there, I went in and took over in the PR side. And so I did communications throughout, but worked very closely with the industry that kind of worked as a team to bring everything back.
That must have been challenging after Katrina to get tourism back.
Did I learn tourism?
I bet,
I mean, it was an experience unlike I could even explain.
It's almost like from the ground up you were doing it.
Yes. Oh, it was from the ground up.
Yeah.
Trust
it had
me
the name.
when I tell you.
The name, but
the year that Katrina hit, we were on schedule to have the highest visitation in the history of New Orleans, and we went from that to zero and had to start again. It took us probably about 10 years to get back to that level. Now they've far surpassed it because of all of the
10
infrastructure.
Years.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
This is why I want people to understand tourism doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that you have to really work on, and you have to work on that destination very hard. Even for a New Orleans to have to take 10 years to come back, it kind of should be a lesson to all of us here that we have to continue promoting, because if we don't, you actually lose ground against all of your competitors. They do.
And whatever's
there are
on
lots of places to go.
Sure, and whatever's advertised on the TV today, they say, oh, let's go there, and they'll forget.
Very true.
It's so true.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you talked to folks about your background, because you obviously took Paul Cripps's place, who passed away suddenly, and everyone loved Paul Cripps, but you're a different type of person than Paul is, and I think it's a fascinating background you have, and we weren't sure we were ever going to replace Paul, and Paul is irreplaceable, but
totally irreplaceable.
You bring so many different skills that we're so glad you're here.
But when I tell you that the staff that I walked into is one of the best staffs I've ever worked with. They're seasoned, they understand the business, they know where we need to go. They had tons of ideas so that I could take what I had learned to a very, very strong foundation and grow from there. So, I mean, every day I thank my lucky stars that I followed such a pro.
And Paul was, he would always say that too. He would never really take the credit. He was just the front guy. And it was all of them doing the work behind it. He would always give them the credit.
It truly is. I mean, we've got one of the finest experts in group travel anywhere on that staff. They're all in their own ways so well. They're great in their jobs, all of them.
Yeah. All right. So tell us about now. The organizations there's two organizations. And this gets confusing for people.
This gets very confusing, but it's really pretty easy. Yeah. We think we found a solution to taking away the confusion.
About that. I like the solution.
Right now, Plymouth and Plymouth County is promoted, and because they are the #1 industry in the county and #3 in the state. But for both Plymouth County and the town of Plymouth, they're #1. Tourism is the #1 industry. But it takes both organizations to make it work. The Plymouth County Convention and Visitors Bureau literally helps us to become a regional tourism council person. We have a regional tourism council of all of Plymouth County, and that's the only way we can actually qualify for Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism money. And so through that area, we are funded through state funds and a little bit of money from the county as well. From the town of Plymouth, we have funding through, the town of Plymouth gives a certain amount of funding to us as well as to a visitor services board that they appoint. That works very well as well. The town of Plymouth obviously is the economic driver for the whole county. So a lot of what we do surrounds, it's kind of like, you go for the shiniest ornament on the tree, and so that's what you really promote to get your people there and then spread them out from there. But we've got probably about 5 or 6 other towns that do tourism and have attractions that we also can promote pretty heavily. But everything that we do, whether it's in Plymouth or in Plymouth County, as we bring visitors in to spend money, it's helping everyone. You know, the rising tide. How does that go? That I've heard this from about 50 New Englanders since I got here. The rising tide makes all boats float, or something to that,
exactly.
something like that. But at any rate, it's true. It really is true.
You don't want to say that in New Orleans, I guess.
No, that's not something we would say there. No, but at any rate, it takes both of those organizations funding. But it was very confusing because people didn't know whether to call Destination Plymouth or whether to call the Plymouth County CVB or who did what.
And they're separate boards too, right?
They're totally separate boards,
but
as they should
some
be.
on both, though.
Yeah, there are some people that share on both, but not that many. You know, just a handful. But at any rate, it's very important to do it that way in order to have both sources of funding, and it still is enough to compete effectively. But when I came in, one of the first things that we did was we decided to brand under one name, and this did not take a genius to figure out, Matt. We have used cplymouth.com for our website forever. And so
I never knew that.
No?
I never knew that, no.
Well, we have now rebranded, and we are now C Plymouth, and we're funded
SEE.
SEE. Although we have the domains for SEA, the letter C, you name them. They all go to us. But at any rate, C Plymouth is our name now, and we are funded then, of course. And of course, we use the logos of everybody else, including Mott, including Destination Plymouth, et cetera, on our ads and such, so people know where our funding is coming from. But this allows the visitor not to be confused.
Yeah. So what makes tourism so important to Plymouth and Plymouth County? What brings people here? You as an outsider, what would bring people? Did you hear of Plymouth before you even came here? I
had heard of Plymouth, but I had absolutely no idea what a charming place it was until I started coming, and I had no idea that there was also all sorts of tourism opportunities, whether it's whale watching or a sunset cruise or a museum tour or a million different things. I think that it's essentially important to Plymouth because if you look at the background of Plymouth and how Plymouth has grown, it's been through seasons like all of us. Our lives go through seasons. And there was a time when industry was the main thing and all of the industrial factories, et cetera. That was an important time for Cordage, for all of the various groups that we've had. But as things have moved forward for the 300th anniversary of the Mayflower Voyage, that's when everything changed. And of course, they created Brewster Park, and so many since then, and so many things have come together to create tourism. But think about it. What better industry could we have for Plymouth County? Tourism is clean. It's environmentally wonderful. It brings visitors from all over the world in order to enjoy the beauty of New England. It allows us...
You don't have to go over the bridge to Cape.
That's right. You don't have to go over the bridge to the Cape. You don't have to go through the traffic in Boston. It's absolutely a perfect go-between place to be and to come to. What I think we haven't promoted enough that I really am going to add, we have a number of ways of promoting, but we also have niche markets that we promote to. And right now we've mostly been promoting to the wedding crowd, to sports, to the bus associations, et cetera. We're going to add another niche group to that, and that's heritage tourism. Heritage tourism is something that everyone here just totally takes for granted. You know, they know the Mayflower story, and they know the story, both the Wampanoags and the Mayflower colonists, et cetera. And it isn't that big of a deal to them. But right now, genealogy is the #1 hobby in America. And second, you know, the number 2 is gardening. It's even surpassed gardening as the number.
You're right. You hear people talk about it all the time.
Yes, they do. And with DNA hitting the scene and all of those sites, and with the television shows like Who Do You Think You Are, and with everything happening, it's really caught fire with millennials as well. So we need to follow those trends and see what's hot, and then we need to adjust accordingly. So we're going to adjust our sails a little and really start pushing heritage tourism as well as the wonderfully trendy restaurant scene we now have. We have chefs that are beyond comparison right now. And some of the trendiest places have opened up along Court Street and Main Street Extension, et cetera. So we have a big story to tell.
I have a couple older daughters, and they much rather go to the nightlife in Plymouth than actually go to Boston. And you see that on the weekends.
Yes.
You see it's full of younger generation of people coming to the restaurants and the bars, and the culture that's down there, the shows and the plays and all that. It's just wonderful. The music, the artists that come in. It's absolutely a wonderful atmosphere. I live down there and absolutely love it. Love walking the streets and seeing all the activity. So tell me, how the marketing dollars that you get through the state, and where do you market? We market in a number of ways. We're starting to change up a little as well, and I'm really glad you asked, because we've got some really exciting things coming. Instead of constantly doing print and magazines, we will still do those that are important, but digital is where it's at now, of course. On the phones, but not only digital and not only phones, but also television and radio both have and radio especially in the last 2 or 3 years is really making a comeback because of podcasts, because of, there are many reasons why. But what you're going to see us do now, even more than we have before, is number one, promote more as a destination itself, showing all of the things that are available there. We'll continue to do co-op ads, but we'll carefully choose who matches that ad so that they will get enough promotion out of it if they buy into the ad as well. But we're getting ready to do, for instance, a radio media tour, which means that we will be set up for a period of 4 hours to talk to about 25 national, regional, and local talk shows across the country. We'll be talking about Thanksgiving and what's coming up, as well as 2020, because by using radio, you have longer interviews, 3 to 5 minutes, and you can really talk about your destination more and why you should come. You'll also see us, for beyond 2020, you'll also see us doing satellite television tours as well, where a satellite truck will come into town. We'll be sitting on the bay or wherever. We may have a chef, as well as a reenactor. We may have a boat captain, whatever we put together to do segments. And in that case, you do one after the other for a period of about 4 hours. Most of them pre-taped to show on their morning shows the next day. Some of them you do live. Those are the really fun ones. But things like that you'll be seeing more of. As far as the magazines itself, through past advertising I have done, et cetera, through relationships, et cetera, instead of magazines that you maybe have heard of, sort of, in the region, you'll see us now in Condé Nast, in some of the larger travel magazines for the same price, and just by deciding what markets to go in, which ones come here the most, et cetera. So we're just kind of changing it up a bit. Okay. Well, of course, we have the 400th anniversary coming. Oh, yes. So how does See Plymouth fit into all this? Well, See Plymouth is working very, very closely with Plymouth 400. Both of our offices together are working to advertise as best, to help in any way that we can. Our ad dollars help their ad dollars, and most of what we're advertising right now will be devoted to 2020, and then but our ads will also focus on what's beyond 2020 and what's coming after that. So we're kind of... That's what's important. It is. 2020 is going to happen. We're going to get the crowds there. It's going to be great, but we don't want that lull. So how do you 2020 is going to the restaurant for the first time and going, wow, this is really cool. I got to come back. And so the one thing Plymouth is blessed with because of heritage tourism is that there are a lot of people that come back over and over and over because they frankly come back because of the Mayflower story, to see things over and over. That's a good thing, and that's going to help us to grow too. Many people know that I was involved in the National Pilgrim Memorial Meeting
Meeting House grant that we received. Once which we have branded the Mayflower Meeting House, because we'll be telling the entire Mayflower story, both the Wampanoags and the Pilgrims. But that is going to be a game changer. I mean, what?
Will it be like a museum?
No, it's not a museum. It's not a visitor center. Think of it as an orientation center. That the minute you hit town, you go in and see the most incredible state-of-the-art production you could possibly see. Go to the basement where there will be all kinds of interactive things, and I can't really get into it much now because we're not allowed to talk about it until we get all of it worked out. But we've been working closely with a committee that is determining all of that, and it is really exciting, Matt. And I think that's going to draw crowds that we haven't seen before as well, not just for heritage tourism. Every person with a kid is going to want to come there and see and let them play with everything and see everything that's happening. It's going to be a wonderful family attraction. So there's lots planned for beyond 2020, but 2020 has allowed it all to happen. The new infrastructure. Thank you very much, Mr. Representative Muratore and Senator DiMacedo. And of course our federal money as well that has helped with that as well.
I think it's been over $30 million, including the $14 million from the federal government for the dredging.
Yeah, and I mean the state has come. I mean they've come through so well on so many levels.
I just came from an event with Secretary Pollock, and she was talking about the Plymouth 400. And early on in the administration, the governor felt very strongly about, instead of giving the money to the so-called party for the event in 2020, it really should go into infrastructure, because he was looking at, and we agreed with him, is that you want to make sure that you can handle the crowds, not just for 2020, but for beyond it as well.
And plus that infrastructure, let's say that numbers go from a frenzy to just a good amount. Right now, we probably bring over 1 million people through a year. It needs to be 3. You know, I mean, it really does, and we easily have the infrastructure to handle that spread out. Our travel season is also extending. Instead of just being a few months in summer, I live down there, and on the shoulder months, there are families, there are groups, there are all sorts of people going by saying, why isn't everything open? So, you know, we're all going to have to work together to expand it somewhat, but we certainly have got the resources to handle larger crowds.
What can the town do to get ready for 2020? What more can they do?
The town can work hard with us in order to establish new modes of transportation that stay. I mean, if we could get, for instance, the train to go more often from Kingston onto Cordage, that will help. But I honestly think those things are going to happen, Matt, because if you look at the developments going on out there and the new condos and new industry, et cetera, who knows? We may have a beautiful marina there one day as well that will draw people. But we have to also deal with it as a town. We've got to make sure that there's adequate transportation coming from there into the city center, or the town center, I should say. Same with the Route 3, the Route 3 exit 5, where we've got the Massachusetts Visitor Center. That also, we've got transportation through the week, but none on Sunday. So if you get off the bus there on a Sunday, you're stuck. So, and then of course the shuttle going around town needs to continue, but there's no reason that we can't meet those challenges as a town. And it would be nice to get a few more people in tourism situated so that we can really start filling in those spaces. But during 2020, obviously, I know that Chief Botteri is working with a lot of different agencies to get ready for everything as well. So we have a lot of people that we've got to entertain.
Well, the one thing I hear often is, you know, where are people going to park? How are people going to get around? I mean, if we're going to see, right now we have 1 million people, as you said. Okay, we're handling it. If we get to 3 million, how do How do we handle it well so people don't get frustrated from coming here?
We sit down, we plan, we figure out what's going where. If we need to change the direction of a street here and there, if we need to set up centers outside with a shuttle service, who knows what the answers are? Far greater minds than mine will solve it. But I think the town is ready for that. I find people to be very excited.
Yeah. And we talk about tourism being our #1 industry here, and now it's time to show why we are, and not just for 2020, but beyond. And
tourism is an economic driver.
It's an economic driver, yeah. I'm just going to bring up that, and you've been part of this group that we started a couple of years ago, Tourism Beyond 2020 group. And we've had over 25 people from different parts of the industry that come on I think we've had 6 meetings so far in the last 2 years, but they still keep coming.
And they're not just tourism people.
No, they're not.
The people from all over.
So how do we get more people to invest, and why should they invest in tourism?
People need to invest in tourism because first of all, let me just say, one of the biggest jobs I have here is to make people understand the definition of tourism. Tourism is not visitors showing up to visit. Tourism includes locals. It includes everybody, because during that off season, the locals need to then take the place in order to sustain the businesses, to grow. We need to be offering things that are just as entertaining for the locals as we do for the tourists while they are there. And that's something that I think once we all together understand that and start working together, then we're going to be a much more successful industry. It's very important to invest. And it is an investment. If you join either Plymouth County Convention Visitors Bureau from the county or Destination Plymouth from the town, you're not joining an organization, you're investing in the #1 industry in this area and in this county, and you're helping in order to bring more economy to everybody across the board. And we need everybody on board if we're going to really grow it and keep it as successful as it is growing into. There's so much potential here. I mean, I'm just really honored to be here.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you here. You and I attended a small meeting of I think he's a nationally recognized guy that does marketing, and he talked about a theme park. We should be looking at Plymouth as a theme park. What do you think about that?
I'm not sure I agree, honestly. I think that theme parks are always fun. You're always going to get families that attend. But what I have learned, and if you look at marketing right now, the theme parks are kind of the past. What people are looking for now is authenticity and actual experiences that are real and real stories about where they're going. And families are into this, millennials are into this, people who hike are into this. They want to come and hike and still do other things.
And other things.
That's why New Orleans has grown at the rate it has, is because it's authentic. And some good authentic things and some not so good, but it is authentic. You've got to give it that, and it has history. Those are the real game changers right now for visitors. Theme parks are always fun. I would love it. It would be one more attraction that we could promote, but I don't think that that's what we need in order to grow tourism necessarily.
I got his concept of what he was trying to say, but I really like what you just had to say there, because we are looking at ecotourism. Hiking and trails are becoming a big thing here in Plymouth. I mean, Plymouth is working for years to get trails so people can hike and walk, and that brings people in for longer visits as well.
Everything that visitors look for now, authenticity, experience, experiential interactivity, adventures, all of the things that you could read in all the tourist books, we hit every single check mark all the way down. Plus, we're centrally located between Boston and the Cape. So
and we're island too.
Yeah. And we have to put the transportation in to make it happen.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for what you've been doing, what you'll continue to do, and welcome to Plymouth.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
We hope you enjoyed the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks to all the folks here from PAC TV, from Ben and Keith, and all the other folks for all they do here. Again, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on State Matters.